What's going on, guys? Getting in the green. We got UFC 268, Usman versus Covington 2. And this is a monster card. 14 fights, talent top to bottom, man. We got a lot to break down here for you guys. So let's kick it off here down at the bottom. First fight of the night, we got CJ Vergara versus Osbourne. Vergara's at a plus 155 and minus 180 for Osbourne right now. How you got this one going, Matt?
Yeah, it's a good fight. I don't know how many of you guys have watched Osbourne, but I mean, that guy is a action-packed fighter, brings the fight. It obviously cost him in his last fight. I thought he was looking really good. Spectacular flying knockout against him. But in general, I really like this guy's talent. So I'm going Osbourne here, and I'm even going pretty confidently. I believe he's just the more skilled fighter everywhere. I think he's got a better striking advantage here. I think he could take this fight to the ground if he wanted to. And I think the pressure is going to make a difference. And I actually like him to get the finish early. So I'm going Osbourne. DraftKings, I was hoping he was a little cheaper here, considering he's only a minus 180 favorite. But Osbourne comes in at 8,700, and you get Baghdasaryan at 7,500. Still want to play a lot of Osbourne. I don't mind the bet straight up on Osbourne at a minus. He's between minus 180 and minus 185, depending on what site you're using. I also like the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 175. Osbourne's a go out on his shield type of guy. I do expect him to get the finish here, but he's a guy that takes risks to get shit done, and he could get caught too. So if you don't agree with my breakdown necessarily or the confidence level of Osbourne, I really like that minus 175 fight doesn't go to decision as well.
Yeah, I agree. I don't quite understand why the line is so close, honestly. Osbourne is the better fighter all around here. I think Vergara's got like this crazy, recency bias because of that KO in the Contender Series. But, I mean, let's look at that. I mean, he caught the guy with a couple liver shots and the guy crumbled. Bruno Correa, I mean, we don't even know how good of a fighter that guy is. He looked like a scrub out there. I don't think that... I mean, this guy just pushed forward and was just throwing. And I think if you come forward like that on Osbourne, you're going to get knocked out. Or Osbourne's going to take you down, and I believe he's the better grappler here. I got Osbourne first round sub. I do think this is a must play on DraftKings. Osbourne throws volume. He's live for a quick finish here. And he's not 9,000 though. So, yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to get him a little cheaper here. But Osbourne is a must play for me on DK tomorrow night.
Yeah, and just, his two losses were obviously to Keller and Cape. Two really talented guys. I already talked about the Cape loss, where I really thought he was looking great and winning before kind of a flash KO at the end of the round. Keller, we all know about Keller, completely different style, wrestler, really hard matchup. And then his win against Rivera, guy scored 127 points on fantasy. So if you think the guy's going to win, he brings action. So great play.
Even that Keller fight, he lost because he got overzealous on a submission of his own.
Yeah.
But he was the one that was dominating that initial grappling exchange. He went sub over position and then ended up getting caught because of it. But I mean, this guy is a legitimate grappler here. And he's fighting a guy who doesn't have much takedown defense, hasn't shown any real submission offense or defense. So, yeah, I mean, for me, this is a one-way traffic for Osbourne. I think Vergara is live for his hands, but even that, I think he gets countered pretty hard here. So, I like Osbourne a lot here in this first fight of the night. The next fight, we got Baghdasaryan at minus 340 versus Bruno Souza at plus 270, who took this on short notice.
Yeah, just to give an update, Souza was the only fighter to miss weight today. Didn't miss by too much. I think it was a few pounds. Fight's still on. I think they're giving him the benefit of the doubt taking such a short notice fight.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm on the Melsick train here, man. We pounded this guy in his first UFC fight. He has supposedly issues with his gas tank, but it's because he throws 100% into every punch and kick he throws. This guy's an absolute animal. I think the only reason that fight lasted to the second round is because Anglin was a legitimate threat as a wrestler. And Baghdasaryan didn't want to, get caught into grappling exchanges, so he was a little more picking his spots, but he absolutely dominated that fight. This guy, his kicks are insane, man. You could hear those things from the top of the stadium. And Bruno Souza is completely overhyped by his record. There's a lot of flaws in this guy's game. And even, people will look at his record, they're going to wiki cap this fight, but the reality is, man, he should not be 10-1. He had a DQ by Hamill when he was getting dominated. I believe he got elbowed in the back of the head or something. Got saved there. And then one of his decisions here with Kirk, he didn't win that fight either. He pulled off a split decision, but I had it 29-28 for Kirk. He's okay, but he doesn't excel anywhere, and he's going up against just a powerhouse of a kickboxer here in Baghdasaryan. I had Baghdasaryan first round KO, and probably another must play on DraftKings for me.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I have extreme confidence in Baghdasaryan. I think he wins this fight easily. I don't think Baghdasaryan is without flaws, I will say. I do think he has some gas tank issues because he's throwing hard. I also think a good grappler could really test him here. This isn't that fight. Souza's not going to be able to get this fight to the ground. This fight's going to stay standing, and he's going to get absolutely torn apart. I love Baghdasaryan. I like Baghdasaryan as a prospect, too. But, it's really interesting to me. The original opponent here was TJ Larimi, and I thought he was a way harder opponent. He was way better wrestling and actually could have tested that gas tank. And Baghdasaryan was a minus 275 favorite. In this fight, depending on your site, Baghdasaryan's a minus 290 to minus 350 favorite. Barely more of a favorite here. And I think this is a significantly easier matchup. I think we have a week's notice coming in. This is a slam dunk fight for him. So I do like him a lot on DraftKings as well. Obviously, he's 9,200, and you're getting Souza at 7,000. I think this is he's a really solid play here. In his last fight, which was a knockout, he scored 101. So again, if he scores 100 at 9,200, you might lose there. But as far as a safety for him winning plus getting a finish, he should be very highly played. I'm gonna have to. He may not be a must play for me as much as for you, just because there's a couple 5-round fights on this card. The whole thing. I got to see where I'd fit him in. But if I can afford him, he's one of my favorite guys at the top there. And really, I want to say I don't mind a bet here at all. I don't mind him straight up as a parlay guy. I really like that. If you want to get him inside the distance, you can get him at plus 130. I think that's a really, really strong line. And then even if you want to get him at his handicap, which I don't know if that's actually a better bet here just because I really do believe he's going to get the finish. Handicap, you can get him at minus 195. So I think I would probably just bet him straight up for a parlay type of a piece and bet him inside the distance at plus 130. I like that bet a lot.
Yeah, I think he definitely gets this done. He gets it done early.
Yep.
All right, next fight. We got Dustin Jacoby at a minus 380 versus John Allan at plus 300. And despite what the line says, Dustin Jacoby was the late notice addition here to this fight. But he may be just levels above John Allan here.
Yeah, this is another example where I think the switch actually kind of threw everyone for a loop. So it's similar style favorite. Jacoby is as Kimura was. But I think this is a significantly harder fight for Allan than Kimura was. I actually I don't know. I don't want to say I was picking Allan, but I thought I was thinking that was a sneaky underdog pick against Kimura here, and I don't think he's got almost no chance against Jacoby. I think it's a nightmare matchup. Jacoby's obviously a really, really highly decorated kickboxer. The guy has shown great takedown defense, really, really tough guy to bring down, and even a harder guy to hold down. You can get him down, he's popping right back up. You're actually the one that is becoming more tired trying to grapple with him because he pops right up. So I like him all day. I think he keeps Allan at the end of his jab. I think he's live for a finish. I'm not saying he's definitely going to get it, but I think this is a 30-27 across the board. And as the rounds go down, this is going to be more dominant striking performance from Jacoby.
Yeah, I'm with you here. Jacoby, I don't know how good his takedown defense is, but I think you're spot on with that guy doesn't stay down for long because, I mean, Kutalaba couldn't hold that guy. I think
Yeah.
he had 8 takedowns in the first round of that fight. 10 aided him. And then comes back and he's completely gassed because he couldn't apply any pressure on top, man. Jacoby was
Yeah.
back up so fast in that fight. And you're
Yeah,
not going to get a better grappler than Kutalaba as far
I
as
was gonna
pressure.
say, Kudala was a powerful, good wrestler and just couldn't do crap. I know he did technically get the 8 takedowns or whatever it was in the first round, but it was like, it is one of those. What do you really count a takedown if the guy butt touches the ground for a second and then he stands again? And that was the same thing with Stewart. Stewart's a big, powerful guy. I wouldn't call him a wrestler, but he's a big, strong, powerful guy. And he like kind of dragged him down for 5 seconds and then got destroyed.
Yeah, Jacoby striking's on another level. And again, this is just a nightmare matchup for Allan because Allan is not an aggressive wrestler like that.
No.
And you're not going to stand there and strike with him either. Also would want to point out that this guy's split decision with Dolidze should have been a unanimous decision loss. He wasn't even close in that Dolidze fight to doing anything productive offensively. Yeah, I think Jacoby outstrikes him. I don't love it for DraftKings.
No.
I think this has decision written all over it. But I don't mind a bet on Jacoby in a parlay piece, or maybe even his -3.5, because I do see, I don't see a path for Allan to really win minutes here.
No, I love Jacoby as a betting piece. I think he should be a bigger favorite. I really do. Even if you don't want to take any risk on that, Jacoby with the guy we were just talking about, Baghdasaryan, those two pieces parlayed together by themselves, the lines, I really like that bet. I'm going to go heavy on that. Let's see what we get on -3.5. Jacoby -3.5. You can get it -215, so it's a good line there. I really like that line as well. If you are willing to take a little more risk to make sure he doesn't drop around, but I feel pretty confident in that as well. DraftKings, I'm with you. I'm not playing either. I mean, I may throw in like one Jacoby, but Jacoby is the most expensive fighter on this card. He's at 9,600.
Yeah.
And you got Allan at all the way down to 7,800. I was actually hoping you could get him because he was a late replacement, in that 8,700 range. So really shocked by that price. And, even in his win against Stewart, which he was a first-round KO, which is not something he does every fight, he got 106 points. 2 fights ago with that Grisham, which was a close kind of decision, he scored 55. He is happy to have someone kind of stay on the end of his jab. I don't like him. I don't even think I'd play him at the 9,000 range, let alone 9,600 here. So I'm going to be passing a lot on him. He's not a DraftKings. He's not in the radar for DraftKings for me.
Yeah, and on DraftKings, he reminds me of a Sean Strickland fantasy fighter. It's you could absolutely dominate a 5-round fight, and you still might only score 90 points.
Yeah.
He's just a technical kickboxer, and he's very, very good at it, and it just doesn't translate well to DraftKings. So, yeah, I'm with you here. Betting Jacoby heavy, not playing really any DraftKings with him at that price point. All right, up next, we have the retirement fight for Gian Villante, which was recently announced at -125 versus Chris Barnett at +105. How you feeling about this? Because this is a garbage fight.
I think it's a garbage fight, but I actually have I know we've talked off air here. I think I have a little bit more of a confidence on this pick than you do. I do think it's a garbage fight, but, Villante's about to get his New York fight spoiled. His retirement fight at his hometown, his crowd. I think Barnett's better everywhere. I mean, you might laugh at Barnett's makeup because he's a 5'9" guy that weighs 263 and is this kind of chubby little guy that doesn't look like he should be fighting heavyweight. But from a skill standpoint, I just think he's significantly better here. I think he's much quicker. Villante wasn't good when he first got to the UFC, however many years ago that was. Freaking 10 years ago. That guy was never UFC caliber. Somehow he hung around the whole time, and his skill set looks to have fallen off a cliff here. This is a guy who fought a lot of his fights at light heavyweight, and somehow overnight is, even this, they have him listed at 243. I'm pretty sure he just weighed in at 264. The guy's big, out of shape. He's ready for retirement. He's just so unimpressive recently. He's still got some power in his punches. This guy tapped to basically exhaustion in a fight he was winning over Maurice Green with no time left. Like, I'm so unimpressed with Villante, and it's like Barnett obviously came in, fought a pretty hard fight with Rothwell, showed an awesome chin, showed pretty damn good heart, and was quick against a guy in Rothwell that's not, we're not talking about a championship level fighter, but a hard fight. And I think if you just compare that, like, I don't think Villante would have anything for Rothwell right now. And so I'm picking Barnett pretty comfortably here. I think he has a better gas tank. I think he's the better striker, and I think he's significantly quicker at this stage in Villante's career. And I don't mind a bet on Barnett at plus 105. I'm not saying that's super heavy because we are talking about the general skill of this fight is low, and there's two guys. I think Barnett's levels above where Villante is at this day and age. DraftKings as well. You can get, let's see, where's Barnett is 8,300, Villante 7,900. So for me, with a pretty high confidence level in Barnett, I like that play at 8,300, especially with Villante's gas tank issues. Like, Barnett can get a finish without actually finishing this guy just from exhaustion in the third round type of a scenario. I like Barnett here, and I don't mind him. I'm not saying he's a must play for me, but I like that price at 8,300. You got heavyweights throwing hard strikes, and I think Barnett's the quicker, harder puncher at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going Barnett here, but I have zero faith in this fat piece of shit. Like the guy's got no cardio. And I remember that Rothwell fight completely differently because we did take a shot on Barnett on DraftKings. And when I watched that guy walk up to the octagon, I knew we were fucked. John Villante doesn't have anything for him either, though, so that's why I'm picking Barnett here. But this is bottom of the barrel. This guy's not very skilled. He's just got a great chin and he's fat. He's got like fat man power in his hands. Technically speaking, like, I don't think he has anything. Yeah, man, I'm not playing this fight on DraftKings at all. I know they're heavyweights, but I could also, like, if this goes to decision, these guys might score 50 points. Yeah, I think Barnett's faster. He's probably the better fighter here. Shockingly, might have the better gas tank at this point. But, yeah, I mean, I'm hard-pressed to say I want to bet on a guy that can't take, his conditioning seriously. So, Barnett, it's a fade for me on DraftKings, and I'm probably not going to bet this fight. It's just so low level, anything can happen.
All
right, next up, we have the prospect, man. Garry here at minus 380 versus Jordan Williams at plus 300. This is going to be an exciting fight, man. Personally, I think people are writing off Jordan Williams a little too much here because his last fight out against Gall, he looked like shit. Got rocked early, and then Gall subbed him pretty quickly. But I will say, like, I took more out of Mickey Gall being legit in that fight and really rounding out his game than I did Jordan Williams being a complete bum. Jordan Williams has power in his hands, man. He saw that against Rodriguez in the Contender Series. He had a tough unanimous decision loss to Imavov where he just showed heart, man. He would not go down. And he was getting his ass beat there. Jordan Williams is not the better fighter in this fight, but he is dangerous. Round 1 KO. I definitely think he's live for it. I will say, like, this guy has, I think it's type 1 diabetes, and it's very hard for him to cut weight. And I know he's been medically cleared to make this weight class, but every time he's fought down here have been all of his KO losses. I do think the weight cut just is more brutal on this guy's body than it is, the rest of the fighters. Garry, on the other hand, man, is technical as all hell, man. For his age, I mean, this guy is polished in the striking realm. He's also got good grappling, has some submission victories. He looks like a very well-rounded fighter, and, like, this guy is going to be a problem for people moving forward as he hones his skills. He also took that move over to Sanford MMA. And, I mean, that camp is just doing great things right now. So I'm on Garry. I'm not quite sure I get there on DraftKings too often because I think he's like 9,500. But I do think Ian Garry, and I think he dominates this fight if he can avoid the early onslaught from Jordan Williams.
Yeah. Ian Gary's 9,500. Williams, you're getting at 6,700. So if you think Williams can get that KO done, not a bad play at 6,700. But for me, I don't even see that as much of an option here. I think Williams is a perfect matchup for Garry in just his style of striking. He's just kind of a looping power puncher, relies on his athleticism. From a technical standpoint, this isn't very close standing. Ian Gary's for real, too. This is like the most hyped Irish prospect since like Connor, pretty much. I think the guy's for real here. I think he's actually more well-rounded than Connor was at the time of this hype. And I think he wins this either way. I think he wins this on the ground. He wins this standing. I like him a lot here. Wouldn't mind him as a parlay piece. Yeah, it's tough getting up to 9,500 when we haven't seen it, but I think like a first-round finish is not out of the question. I think it's actually probably the most likely scenario. So I'm going to be playing some of them there. I'm going to be playing some Ian Garry at 9,500, no doubt. I think he can score. Not a must-play at that price point, but I will definitely be playing some of them.
You saying this guy's got more hype than Patty the Batty?
He should. I think he's already better than Patty the Batty.
All right, so that's the early prelims, guys. I mean, we've got studs fighting from top to bottom here, man. So we're going to move into the prelims now. And this first fight is probably my top pick for maybe fight of the night here. We got Edmund Shahbazyan at plus 100 versus Imavov at minus 120. How are you feeling about this one, man?
It's a really close fight. Comparatively to Shahbazyan's most recent fights, it's actually a pretty good style matchup. As we've seen from Shahbazyan in recent times, we know the guy's talented. He's a really, really, really good kickboxer. He actually, for all the kind of shitty his last two fights were, he's not a bad grappler at all. He actually has good submissions off his back, and he's able to get back up. He just has some gas tank issues when a strong wrestler or strong grappler get on top of it. That's what we've seen in the last two fights. He's looked good, in the first rounds of both his fights against Brunson and against Hermansson. But ultimately, kind of tired. The better grappler got on top and kind of dominated there. With that being said, I will say that I thought Shahbazyan looked good in his element because Brunson and Hermansson are grapplers. Imavov's a little bit of a different beast, and in the sense that I don't think Imavov's one bit concerned where this fight goes, but I think he has more options than Shahbazyan does. I know Shahbazyan's a little more I don't want to say flashy, but he has a little more oomph in his striking. I think he is shown to be a better kickboxer. I don't actually know if he's going to win a striking battle against Imavov. I'm not saying he couldn't, but I'm not confident in that statement. And Imavov is, he's a freaking Russian, even though he's the guy that chooses to strike. The guy's grappling is really good, and his takedowns are good when they need to be. I think it's a close fight, a hard fight to call. But based on what I've seen, I know Shahbazyan's changed camps. He's trying to get his grappling better. I think at this stage, and Shahbazyan's still young, I think Imavov has more ways to win this fight. I think Imavov can win this fight standing at a straight-up kickboxing match. I think Imavov could win this fight grinding against the cage style. I think Imavov could win this fight on the ground. There's just more scenarios I see for Imavov, and I think Imavov's a tough guy. I don't think you're going to get him out of there easily like some of Shahbazyan's early victories where he's getting first-round finishes. I don't see that against Imavov either way, even if Shahbazyan is getting the better of him standing. And I think Imavov is a smart enough fighter to adapt here and win. So, close fight. Imavov, I think the odds are pretty correct here, minus 120 to plus 100. DraftKings, you got an Imavov at 8,500, Shahbazyan 7,700. Great fight, ultimately. You know what? I probably would lay off the bet. I'm tempted to take a little shot on Imavov at minus 120 because I really do think the guy's that talented. Don't let that Phil Hawes loss, kind of turn you off to him. He's really, really good, and I think he's got a future as a title contender. But, Shahbazyan has a bright future. It's a tough fight. Imavov, but from a DraftKings perspective, it's kind of tough for me to play this. Imavov looked the best he did in his last fight and got an actual finish. still only scored 94 points. Shahbazyan really has only scored super well in his, first round KOs, which I don't think is going to happen here, even if Shahbazyan gets the better and wins the kickboxing match. I don't see a first round type of finish, so I'll play some of this fight, not a must play for me. I could see a hard fought decision for whoever wins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the other end of this fight, but I do think this is an absolute battle, man. I like the fact that Shahbazyan switched camps. He has to have decent grappling. Your grappling doesn't need to be great. I mean, this guy is an explosive striker, man. And the guy got Brad Tavares out of there in the first round. And Brad Tavares is tough as nails. Then he got thrown to the Wolves, man. You fight Brunson and Hermanson back to back. I mean, those are just terrible stylistic matchups for you. I think this stays standing. I don't think Imavov turns this into a grappling fight. I think they're both more than willing to stand there and strike with each other. This was a tough one, man. I think Shahbazyan has a power advantage here, but I think Imavov is the better striker. Ultimately, I'm going to go Shahbazyan here. I think the power looks better to the judges. I think this does go to decision. On DraftKings, yeah, I probably wouldn't play too much Imavov, maybe one or two at that price point. But with this card, I'm not picking many underdogs, so I will play a decent amount of Shahbazyan. Just because you got to take a dog somewhere, and I think this guy can pull off a win here. So even if it's 80, 90 points, if this goes 3 rounds, I don't mind Shahbazyan here as an underdog pick on DraftKings.
All right.
Next up, we got Phil Hawes at -330 versus Chris Curtis at +260.
Awesome fight as well.
Yeah, I would say Hawes, I think, has got a tougher matchup here than the one against Darren Wynn that kept getting changed. So, he wouldn't accept that late notice as well. So now here we are against Chris Curtis a couple weeks later, and this is going to be a good fight, man.
Yeah, this is one of those where Hawes should win this fight, and I'm picking Hawes. Let me just put that out there to begin with. The -330 favorites, not outrageous considering Hawes' wins, everything like that. But from a stylistic standpoint, I don't feel comfortable betting this fight. Even though I'm picking Hawes, I'm going to play some Hawes on DraftKings because when Hawes wins, he's a powerful guy. He gets a lot of takedowns. I think Curtis is a tough customer here. Like you said, I do think he's harder than Wynn. I think he's a significantly better striker. The guy really, really rips the body, and we've seen Hawes kind of have some cardio issues if it's a really hard push fight. And at the end of the day, Hawes has almost been caught in a few fights that he's just dominating. He is a little chinny. It's just true. It makes me not want to bet the guy on certain positions. With all that being said, Hawes is the better fighter here. I think Hawes could even just be the better striker. He's a really, really explosive guy, an extremely powerful guy, and he should be able to get the takedowns. He's one of the better wrestlers, one of the best wrestlers in the middleweight division. So Hawes should win this fight. But like you said, Curtis is a tougher challenge than Wynn. Wynn was really going to get a takedown or get destroyed. That was it. This one, I think Curtis has a couple more ways to win. He gets the full camp this time as opposed to kind of the short notice. I think he stepped in on like a day's notice before. Interesting fight. I do think Hawes is the rightful favorite. I like Hawes on DraftKings at 9,400 again because when he wins, the guy scored 128, 96, and 95. Not that 96, 95 is great, but he's pretty safe when he wins to get you some points there, and he is a big favorite here. So I'll be playing Hawes. I might take a shot on one or two Curtises just to kind of can really obviously make your lineup if that happens. But I feel more comfortable playing him on DraftKings because of the reward there than a straight bet. I think the odds are correct, and Hawes has shown some little chinks in his armor that give me pause to really lay a heavy bet on him.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm on Hawes here big time. And I just feel like these like knocks on this guy's fighting style are just like very old, and this guy has been developing. I mean, his last knockout loss was Julian Marquez in 2017. He was completely gassed in that fight in the second round. It's where all the gas tank issues really came to light, and that was at the Dana White Contender Series. Then he goes to Bellator. But I mean, since then, he's been on a 7-fight win streak. He's shown some, cardio issues early there. But then, I mean, he out-cardios Imavov. And he looks great against Kyle Dawkins, who just looked really good as well. I don't know if this guy has cardio issues anymore. I'm also not sure how chinny this guy is. And, I mean, Curtis, I think, is going to be undersized here, even though he weighed in a little heavier. I think he is going to be the smaller fighter come fight night. I think Hawes just holds this guy up against the cage, man, and just, very similar to the Imavov fight, just kind of controls, even without the takedowns. And Curtis has shown a lack of takedown defense. For as good as his striking is, I mean, he's been repeatedly taken to the mat by good wrestlers. I don't know. I don't really see Curtis's path to victory. I know he's explosive in the hands, but...
Yeah, I'm just going to point in, I don't think that he didn't look good in Imavov Dawkins, but I feel like you're underplaying. He got rocked in both those fights and almost finished at times, even though he ultimately had dominant performances. I do think the guy gets rocked in fights. Now, granted, I think Imavov and Dawkins are better fighters than Curtis, more well-rounded, all of that, but the guy, middleweight, people throw hard. The guy's been rocked in multiple fights that he's won, even in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, he shows good fight IQ, though. He goes right back to where he needs to be, though. He's not standing at distance with these guys after that. And I don't know. I mean, I watched a bunch of this Curtis's regional tape. I don't think he's got the power to put Hawes down, man. So I'm on Hawes. I'm on Hawes big time. I don't know necessarily if it's a must play for me on DraftKings, though, because I could see this just taking place up against the cage for long periods of time while Hawes tries to work a takedown or something like that. But I think it's a great fight, though. It should be exciting. I could definitely see a decision here, though. All right, up next, we got Iaquinta plus 155 versus Bobby Green at minus 180. And another great fight, man. Bobby Green looked very good in his last outing. He actually outstruck Fiziev like 140 to like 104 or something like that, and completely dominated the third round. This fight was very, very close with Fiziev, who should have dominated Bobby Green, but Bobby Green found a way to make it competitive. His striking looked good. His cardio looked, unreal. And he almost got Fiziev out of there in the third round, which is very impressive. I'm leaning Bobby Green here, man. I think he's been the more active fighter as of late. I think he's probably the better striker. And my only problem with betting Bobby Green, though, is that guy loves to keep fights close, man. He doesn't ever just pull away with anything. Yeah, so we're 2 years removed from Iaquinta's last fight against Dan Hooker, which, it's Dan Hooker. This no knock on that loss there. He went the distance with him. But it's been a while. I don't really know what to expect from the guy. I'm leaning Bobby Green here, but I think it stays close, and I really want no part of this fight as far as betting goes. DraftKings, nah, probably not so much either, honestly.
Yeah, it's a close fight. Bobby Green could arguably right now be on a 5-fight win streak. The guy is on a 2-fight losing streak. He did not lose to Moises. That was a decision he should have won. The Fiziev fight, even though I had Fiziev winning, there's an argument there. People had Bobby Green winning that fight. The guy looks good. And even Lando Venata absolutely dominated that fight. Obviously scored well on DraftKings. That's a guy who beat him in 2017 pretty dominantly. So Bobby Green's getting better. He looks good. Obviously, we know Iaquinta, Raging Al. We know his story. Talented fighter, beating some of the upper echelon in the division. Kind of has feuded with the UFC back and forth. He's a real estate agent on the side. Big outspoken fighter for fighter pay. So, guy's coming off another long break. Coming off 2 losses. Hooker, like you said, it's nothing really no shame in that one. And then he had a war with Cerrone. Ultimately, people remember that fight as extremely one-sided, but it was it turned into a one-sided affair in round 3, 4, 5. We had a great fight for the first kind of 3 rounds there. And then, he had a huge upset on Kevin Lee, earlier before that. We're getting 3 years ago, so it's a long time ago. But Al is a talented fighter. He's well-rounded, good striker, power in his hands, good wrestler. Obviously, everyone's going to go back to his Khabib fight, and one of the more competitive Khabib fights there was, just because he's a well-rounded guy. I think the inactivity hurts him here. He's also getting older. I know he's finally fighting in Madison Square Garden in front of his fans, but I think Bobby Green's the smoother striker at this point. I think Bobby Green's improving. I don't see this fight going to the ground. I think it's a close fight, but I actually will say I'm pretty confident in Bobby Green. Not necessarily going to DraftKings this, like you said, because there are question marks, and maybe those question marks make me not bet this. But this is one of those fights where I think I'm going to be looking back and, saying, damn it, everything's pointing that Bobby Green should win this fight. And at minus 180, he's a good bet. You bring up a good point that he does fight. His style fights close, but he has a lot of things going in his favor here. Without his activity, he's improving as a fighter. Al's getting older, inactivity. I think a lot of the advantages point to Bobby Green here. Maybe a small bet, maybe put him on a parlay. Unfortunately, because of the question marks, I don't think we can pound the line. But this feels like one that I'm going to look back and be, yeah, no shit, Bobby Green is the better fighter at this stage in their careers.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
DraftKings, you're right. I don't think it's a DraftKings play.
No, I see decision written all over this thing. Even if Bobby Green dominates, I see him having a hard time getting out of there. So, yeah, tough play on DraftKings. This next fight has all the hype. It's the prelim headliner. We got Alex Pereira at minus 260 versus Andreas Michailidis at plus 210. And Alex Pereira, famous for being the only guy to knock out Israel Adesanya in the kickboxing world. And he's finally making his UFC debut here. The only question marks are his well-roundedness, I guess, is getting called into question. And I know you touched on him being Glover's, number one training partner. But he has shown a lack of grappling skills so far. But on the feet, man, this guy is next level. He's got a reach advantage here. He's a very lanky, lean fighter, which is probably one of the big reasons he struggles in that grappling department with some of these thicker guys at this weight class. But as far as straight kickboxing, man, this guy is second to none. I mean, he's legit KO power. And I do lean him getting this KO and getting it early. But I will say if Andreas decides to turn this into a grappling match, he may have an advantage there, even though he's probably a middle-of-the-road grappler himself. I'm really just hesitant to bet the house on Pereira just in case Andreas decides he wants to grapple here, man. But how you feeling on this one?
I'm a lot more confident in Pereira. First off, let me just a couple things I want to say about Pereira. Obviously, he's famous in the MMA world because he's beaten Adesanya. But he's also beaten Adesanya twice, not once. He has a KO over Adesanya, and he has a decision over Adesanya. The other thing is, rankings-wise, the guy is he's number 1 through 3 in the world at middleweight as a kickboxer. So it's not like, he's got one awesome KO win on his record. It's like, he might be the best middleweight striker on planet Earth right now, and he's coming into MMA. So that's extremely exciting in and of itself. The next thing is, you can already tell where the UFC feels about this, because this guy he's a 3-1 record. 3 of those fights take place in 2015 and 2016. So even some of that tape is completely useless. Like I said, the guy's been training basically as Glover's main training partner at a really good camp. He had a fight in 2020, first round KO. I don't think his grappling is going to be as bad. Now, granted, I'm not saying the guy's going to become middleweight champion overnight. I think there's a lot of matchups that would hurt him. But I think his grappling's improved over the last few years here. I think he's not going to have one of those shocked feelings of, oh, man, I thought I was going to stop the takedown, and now I just really underestimated it. It's like Glover's one of the heaviest, biggest light heavyweights. You at least know what you're in for. Doesn't mean he can defend it, but it's not going to be that shock of, man, I didn't realize what a grappler felt like. So that's a huge confidence booster. The next thing is I think the UFC knows what they're doing here. They're putting a lamb up for slaughter. You don't put Pereira on his first fight as you're on one of the biggest cards of the year, one of the most stacked cards. Think about some of the names we've already broken down. This guy's the number one headliner of the prelims. They're setting him up for a flash KO here. Michailidis is not really a good grappler, a good wrestler. He may be more well-rounded than Pereira right now, but it's not something that's his strength. I just don't think he gets this to the ground. There's absolute risk here. You're not wrong. We have such a small sample size. The overwhelming, most likely outcome here is Pereira by first-round knockout, and I feel confident saying that. And I'm really, really excited for this guy's debut here. He kind of reminds me of like an early Stephen Thompson, which Stephen Thompson did lose a fight to a really good grappler early in his career, but he reminds me of a Stephen Thompson who was GSP's main training partner. Was this amazing kickboxer. He didn't look bad on the ground. He trained with Chris Weidman, but he had some work to do, years to put in to stop that fight going to the ground. But the first couple cans that were thrown on him, he destroyed and knocked out. Then he faced a well-rounded, kind of better fighter, was going up the ladder, needed a wake-up call. I could see that road happening to Pereira here. The second you crack the top 15, you get a wake-up call and go back to the drawing board. I just don't think this is that fight. I think we're getting a showcase first-round KO here, and I will be playing some Pereira. DraftKings, he's coming out at 9,100. Michailidis is an interesting play. If you think he can steal it, you're getting him all the way down at 7,100. Maybe make one lineup with him. But I do like Pereira here, and I'll be probably playing him in 50% of my lineups if I can afford him. I do like him. I like that first-round KO.
Yeah, I mean, his path to victory is great for DraftKings, man. He's got quick win bonus written all over it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, Pereira's definitely got to be a play on DraftKings. Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe one on Andreas here down at the bottom, but I'm not very strongly confident he wins. I do just think at, minus 260, I want to see it a little bit first, but, maybe a parlay piece here for Pereira, but honestly, just a good fight, and it's going to lead us into one of the best main cards of all time here, man. This thing is stacked.
Yep.
All right, so main card, first fight, Justin Gaethje, minus 210 versus Michael Chandler at plus 175. How you feeling here?
It's a great fight, first off. This is the dream fight. Everybody's been hyped for this fight. One thing I just keep hearing, and everybody says, oh, these two are like carbon copies of each other, identical fighters. And it's I don't really agree, other than they're both American, they both knock people out, and they have a wrestling background. But it's Gaethje doesn't use his wrestling at all. He is really his style of fighting, although he's had these awesome knockouts, he uses kickboxing. The guy's got literally one of the best leg kicks in the sport, not just in the division. Chandler is more of a powerful wrestler with awesome one-punch boxing. He's kind of that prototypical. But I see their styles as very different. Also, even their builds. Gaethje is kind of surprisingly tall for the division. Not really. He's very strong in his own right, but he's not like the powerhouse. He's 5'11", a little bit taller, a little more reach there. And Chandler's kind of the bowling ball type of build. So, different fight. And once I really broke down the tape here, although it's a close fight and there's a lot of outcomes, I lean more and more Gaethje every day here. I think Gaethje's the better striker, period. I think the KO, I will give this. Chandler might be more explosive, and that's always live for a KO, and he's a powerful guy. But when you talk about pure striking, I think Gaethje's a way better striker purely. His leg kicks are brutal. His boxing's amazing. His timing's amazing. He's gotten so much better under Trevor Whitman. We can't say enough good things about Whitman here. It's actually the reason that Gaethje and Chandler is the opening fight on pay-per-view is so that Whitman has a chance to go corner all of his fights tonight. He's got Usman in his corner. He's got Rose in his corner. He's got Gaethje, and he needed more time to prepare. So they moved Gaethje to the first fight to give him a little more time there. So that's an interesting little tidbit. But, Chandler's live here. I think if Chandler used a wrestling-heavy game plan, it might be a weakness. But even that, man, we've seen Gaethje get taken down by Eddie Alvarez. We've seen him get taken down in the Poirier fight. The dude pops right back up. The only fight he hasn't popped right back up in is the Khabib fight. Can you really blame him for that? I think it's a little underrated that he has a weakness in his grappling. I wouldn't say he's a strong grappler. Still think he's a good wrestler, and I think Chandler has a hard time holding him there. I think Gaethje picks him apart, and I ultimately think Gaethje gets the finish. Chandler is very live because he's such a... This is like the opposite of the Barnett Villanueva fight, where it's like, this one, even though I feel strongly on one part, it's just like, well, you have such talented fighters, you both are live because they're just that talented. So as much as I'm saying I see all these advantages for Gaethje, Chandler could absolutely win this fight. The last little tidbit I want to add in is Gaethje is probably known as one of the most durable fighters in the sport. And Chandler is not. I'm not trying to insult Chandler here. Chandler's been KO'd quite a few times in Bellator. The guy's been rocked quite a few times. Doesn't lack heart by any means, but he does lack durability. Gaethje could be hit with a goddamn hammer and he's not going down. And I just see they're gonna trade at some point, and I trust Gaethje's chin significantly more. So I'm going with Gaethje. DraftKings, however, I am saying it's a must-play fight either way. They are spread out quite a bit farther than I thought. You're getting Gaethje at 8,900 and Chandler at 7,300. So as much as I like Gaethje and I'll play more Gaethje, I'm going to be playing quite a bit of Chandler here as well, because, I mean, you can get a knockout at 7,300. Sets up your whole lineup. So probably going 60-40 Gaethje here. But, man, it's going to be tough to not play some Chandler at that price point.
Yeah, I'm with you here, man. I think Gaethje is just the better fighter. I think Chandler's best path to victory would be to initiate that wrestling. Not even that we know he has an advantage there, but it's probably closer than the striking is overall. Chandler has massive knockout power. We saw that, in his first UFC fight. KO's Dan Hooker, which, Dan Hooker's no bum, so that is just a great, notch on your belt. But then he comes back against Oliveira, and honestly had Oliveira rocked, but didn't get it done. Ends up ultimately getting KO'd by Oliveira. He's got knockout power, but, with that being said, man, Gaethje is as tough as they come. If he was able to knock out Gaethje, I mean, that'd be incredible, for his resume. Gaethje's definitely not going to wrestle. We know that. He says that shit tires him out too much. He's not doing it. But I do think, if this turns into a grappling match, I don't think Gaethje's outmanned here. But I also think both these guys are more than willing to go into the center of this octagon and just turn this into a firefight. I think Gaethje's going to chop down the legs. I don't know if he gets the finish, though. I know Chandler is a little chinny, but I could definitely see this thing just being a war. Gaethje's not a must-play for me on DraftKings at that price point because of that, but I'll definitely have a good amount of him in case he does get the finish. Chandler, I'm not very confident in it. I'll take, probably 2 or 3 cards that have him down at the bottom there for a KO. But honestly, though, this is just all the excitement, all the hype, all the build up to this fight, man. I just want to watch this one. I'll probably have a small bet on Gaethje at minus 210 is not a bad line, honestly, for the guy. But yeah, to start off a main card like this, I mean, this is the fight you want to see.
I will add in too, not that I disagree with you that I don't necessarily think a finish is for sure. I'm a little heavier on a finish, not just because of style, but I think the Makhachev fight adds a little level of urgency here. If somebody comes out here with an awesome finish, it's probably going to be pretty hard for them to take away a title shot, especially kind of with the rankings, especially for Gaethje, who's the interim title. If you got a boring split decision here, maybe you get jumped. And I know Gaethje's been extremely vocal about his title shot, arguing with Cormier on Twitter, the whole 9 yards. But it's like, if I'm them, and there's so much hype surrounding this fight, you got to go put on a show. A split decision really opens up the door for Islam to cut you in line. It's just another added element to this fight.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Gaethje does have a chip on his shoulder with that being said, too, of just this whole, he's got pushed to the side here as all these fights have happened. And he definitely wants his shot. So Yeah, I could see a little added motivation there to go in and get it done.
Yep.
All right, next fight, we got Shane Burgos at minus 195 versus Billy Quarantillo at plus 165. Good fight, man. For me, though, I think this is just Burgos all day. I think Billy is a great stylistic matchup for him. Burgos is the better striker here, man. He's more powerful. I think he's even more technical. And yeah, I mean, he got knocked out by, Barbosa in his last fight. Lost a decision to Emmett before that. But, I mean, he's KO'd Amir Khani. The guy's got power in his hands, man. I think he struggles with pressure coming at him. But I don't think Billy's really going to apply that much pressure or damage to him to, make him concerned. He's coming off a KO knockout of Benitez. And then you've got a unanimous decision loss to Tucker before that. Both third-round knockouts, though. This guy's not like a one-punch KO guy. He wears on you. Volume. And I just don't think that style is going to play out here with Burgos, man. I think Burgos will keep the distance, land the harder shots, and ultimately win this fight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the line's probably right, personally. I think like minus 195, minus 200 is probably pretty close to how much Burgos should be favored. I think Burgos did hit a wall a little bit. People were talking about future champ here, and I was impressed by him, but I never necessarily saw future champ. Ran into Emmett and Barbosa and kind of showed his overall limits against the top-tier guys. Those are no losses. There's no shame in those two losses. Those are great fighters. Ultimately, I just think Burgos is a better fighter. He's on a different level. I agree, stylistically, it's a fun fight, interesting fight. I could see it being competitive, especially at first here. I think Burgos just lands the harder shots. The guy is an absolute monster. When he trades, when he exchanges, he's got a great chin, even though he's coming off a knockout. Even that knockout, his brain had shut down on him for him to quit. It was such a weird KO. He's a tough guy. I just see him throwing the harder shots in the exchanges, winning, and pretty much being better everywhere by a slight margin here. So I like Burgos. I think this is the sneaky fight of the night, most likely. I think people are sleeping on this fight on the main card because it's so stacked. From a style standpoint, fireworks for sure. DraftKings Burgos all the way at 9,000. It's Quarantillo 7,200. I don't know if I can get behind the 9,000 play there. He really needs to get the finish to score. Even I'm looking in a lot of these victories in the 86, 97, another 80, 90, whereas his two scores over 100 were finishes, KOs. So I'm not confident 100% that you get the KO here. And he's expensive, and it's a closer fight than some of these other fights that are in the 9,000. So I'm not saying I'm not playing any of them because I could absolutely see him on the optimal, but he's a little bit of a riskier play at 9,000 than some of the other guys for me.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have them all, So
Yeah.
Of 9K fighters, yeah, he's probably one of the ones I want the least of. Have one in case he gets it done early. Billy's not a bad play on DraftKings, man, if you think he can get it done. This card, I'm not picking that many underdogs here. So, I mean, at some point, you've got to, bite the bullet and who has the best chance of, an optimal DraftKings score down there at the bottom. You got to kind of take a shot on that. So, yeah, probably a fade for me there. I'm probably not going to put a bet on this fight either. More excited to watch it than I am to actually get on one side or the other here. This next fight, man, Frankie Edgar plus 135 versus Marlon Vera minus 160. And great fight, man. Frankie Edgar's coming off that KO loss to Sanhagen. Before that, he won a split decision, which was real close with Pedro.
Yeah.
And Jung KO'd him before that. Had a Holloway loss there in a decision. I mean, the guy's just fought the elite of the elite, though. And I know he's getting up there in age. He's probably about to see this, decline. But I don't know if Marlon Vera is, the guy that can beat him, though. I mean, Vera's coming off unanimous decision against Grant, lost to Aldo, which nothing wrong with that loss there. Had the KO against O'Malley, but we kind of all know what happened there. And then a loss to Yadong before that. I'm not saying this guy's not fighting upper echelon fighters, but that this is an rejuvenated Aldo, so I'll give him credit on that, fight there, even though he lost it. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Frankie Edgar wins a decision here. I just don't think Chito Vera's that good. I don't think he's top tier. I don't think he's a title contender by any means. And yeah, Frankie Edgar's probably on his way down, but I think he just is still the better technical fighter. I also don't think he's in that much danger with Chito's jiu-jitsu. So I'm going to Edgar by decision here as the underdog, but not a highly confident pick. This is a toss-up fight for me. I think the odds are right. I think Vera should be the favorite here, but I'm going to lean underdog here with Edgar.
Yeah, it bums me out that you're taking Edgar because that was just going to be my sneaky pick here. And I will say, I'm going to pick Edgar officially, and I'm going to, obviously, anybody who knows me well in MMA, Frankie Edgar's been one of my favorite fighters for the last 10-plus years, pretty much since his fight with, Herms Franca, fights like that is when I started liking this guy, well before his Ray Maynard trilogy and everything that followed that. So one of the hard to not love this guy. So I will say that I have bias when I'm picking Frankie here, but it's because it's such a close fight. I will go on the record saying, though, the more logical, the correct pick here and break down everything, it is Chito Vera. Marlon Chito Vera is the younger guy with more momentum. A lot of Frankie's skill sets that really separated him. Those are things that decline when you become 40 years old. It was his speed. It was his sneaky wrestling that was a lot based on his speed and strength. Those things are declining. They absolutely are. And Chito is a guy that's getting better. Frankie's, 40 years old. He is somehow still undersized, even though the guy's dropped 2 weight classes since he fought for the title and was the champion. And he's still undersized. He's going to be the smaller guy in the octagon here. But you're right. Considering the matchups Frankie's had recently, this is the most favorable one that we've seen in a long time. I think Frankie could win this fight, especially if he can get a takedown or two, which I don't know if he can or can't. But I do think he's still a good, quick striker. Marlon Vera will have the power advantage, no doubt about it, and is live for a knockout. But I do think Frankie's still tough enough when you're not landing like a crazy KO shot. He's tough enough to still take him. So I'm picking Frankie, but I will say, on the record, this is a biased pick. I think it's a coin flip style fight, which makes me lean to my bias here. The safer pick is Chito Vera. If I'm betting, I wouldn't recommend a bet on Edgar straight up. If you're going to bet Edgar, Edgar by decision, you can get in the plus 290 range, and just a great bet there. I know Edgar's not going to finish Chito. I really highly doubt that. He hasn't been a finisher his whole career. If he sneaks a decision here, I like that bet a lot. So that is how I would bet this fight if I'm betting it. Relatively small bet there. I'm not super confident. DraftKings, it's a tougher play. Frankie doesn't throw a crazy amount of volume. In that Munoz fight, which was 5 rounds, he only scored 95. So it's tough. I'm not saying that I'm going to play 0 because, again, if you think Frankie's got a chance, $7,400, even if he scores a 75 for you in a decision win and 80, that might be the underdog you needed to get you there. So I'm going to be playing more Frankie than I will Chito Vera. I'm probably going to be playing very low Chito Vera. He's at 8,800. And if he wins, I'm not confident he scores either. So not a must play, but I will be playing significantly more Frankie than Chito because I am picking him, and I think it's a close fight. And you're getting him at 74. Yeah,
I'm with you. And again, it goes back to there's just not that many dogs on this card that I feel confident getting it done. So yeah, Frankie Edgar will be pretty highly played. Look, I think you play a little Vera though on the other side of it if you can. just to be safe. This is a toss-up fight, man. But I'm going to lead the dog here, and I think it does go to decision, so not a bad spot there for Frankie Edgar. This next fight is a rematch here for the title. So we got a 5-rounder in the co-main event. We got Matt-Namajunas at -105 versus Zhang Weili at -115. How you feeling here?
Really interesting that the champ Namajunas is the underdog now, and it's even changed in some sites. You're getting there at like +105, +110. So interesting shift. Now, granted, all right, first fight. Obviously, we got Rose, impressive ass first round KO, but in the grand scheme of things, it happened, I think, in 75 seconds, something like that. We didn't see anything. We didn't see anything play out other than a beautiful, beautiful kick by Rose, who really, I've never seen such an overreaction to protect your body when it's coming for the head. So beautiful, beautiful kick there for Rose, but it doesn't tell us a whole lot about this fight. The reason I'm going with the champ Rose is I remember my breakdown of the first fight. I picked Rose before she got the knockout. I don't think she's going to get a quick knockout again. I think Rose has enough tools to get this done. Rose is with Whitman as well, like I mentioned earlier. Her striking, there's a handful of women MMA fighters that I think have better striking than Rose. And it goes, Valentina, and that's about it. Maybe Nunes, but that's you're factoring in power more than anything there. From a technical striking standpoint, Rose is as good as it gets. She is absolutely silky smooth, has great jabs. Then when we're talking about her well-rounded skill set, great submission. Awesome jiu-jitsu. Does not fear. One of the most well-rounded fighters. Weili is a powerful, powerful woman. Really powerful. Has overwhelmed people with her striking, overwhelmed people with her physicality, with her wrestling. I'm not saying that Weili can't win this fight standing, but that is why I picked Rose to begin with. When we saw Weili versus Joanna J, I just call her Joanna Champ. That's a hard name. But Joanna, she kind of was getting outstruck, but she was just landing the harder shots. She was just so much more powerful to won her the fight, and I don't think she did deserve to win that fight. But from a technical standpoint, Joanna J was getting through, and I think Rose is better than Joanna and has more power behind her strikes. She throws just as much volume, but she's just as technical, and she can sting you. So the fight that scares me of picking Rose is Rose's rematch with blanking. She lost the title to who am I? Andrade. Her rematch with Andrade is what scares me because Rose was, having her way with Andrade standing, and there was some power and some takedowns there that made that a closer fight than it should have been. Andrade didn't necessarily do so much from the top, but it was a close fight, and if Weili adapts that style, I could see her winning, and it'd be a close fight. Especially, the camps play a huge role in this. We got Rose with Whitman, and Rose has some serious, mental, psychological side of the game where I think it's a huge power advantage for her when she's confident and ready to go. But we've seen her when she's kind of has anxiety and things that it affects her fight game. So that's a serious thing to consider. But she seems really confident with Whitman in the camp and is turning a corner and is really more comfortable being a champ. Weili switched camps as well, training in Arizona with Cejudo. Obviously, you can make the assumption there that you're going to have a more wrestle-heavy game. So there's a lot of interesting factors here. I think it's a close fight. I'm going with Rose the same way I picked her the first time. I think 5 rounds helps Rose, doesn't hurt her. She's not going to have any cardio issues. Even if she loses some of those close rounds from takedowns early, I think she will impose her will and have that better striking game as the game goes on. So I'm comfortably picking Rose here. I think it's an awesome fight. I'm really excited for it. But I will say this is an absolute must-play fight on DraftKings. It's $8,200 for Rose, $8,000 for Weili. Must play. Either way, they will be on every one of my cards. I will play a little more Rose because I'm obviously picking Rose. In most lineups, I will be able to play either one that I want. So I will probably go 65% Rose here. But every lineup that I'm not playing Rose will have Weili. I will not have a single card without them.
Yeah, so this is a very close fight, man. I was with you there. Rose is when she was the big dog here against Weili in the last fight. But I honestly think I like that spot for Rose better because she was a big dog. In a straight 50-50 fight, man, I think I'm going to lean Weili here, man. I think her moving over to fight ready is huge. You know, we see that for a lot of Chinese fighters is when they get to this upper echelon of their divisions, they just don't have the competition or the training back at home to really take them to the next level. So the fact that she made the jump over here to fight ready, she's training with Cejudo. Man, this is just an even fight. I'm going to lean with the power here over the technicality, and I think if she can mix in a takedown or two, I think she steals a round. I don't think either of these chicks are going to have a cardio issue by any means. I think they're both ready for this 5-round fight. They've both been in some absolute wars. I think Weili's going to move forward a little more, apply a little more pressure, and she's going to look better to the judges. So I'm going to go Weili by decision here. I do see Rose path to victory, definitely. I mean, she could get another first-round knockout. Honestly, her leg kicks and her striking is just... It's unmatched right now. And yeah, this one's tough for me, man. I want to see Rose win this thing, keep the belt. But something's telling me in my gut that Weili's going to get it done. DraftKings, though.
I will add. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, DraftKings, yeah, I'm with you. Probably a must play. I'll have it on 90% of my cards. I think there's a chance that it could be a decision, striking, patient fight, but even there at 8,000, 8,200, you're probably still making value. So
yeah,
this is
5
rounds of just going at it. So yeah, I think must play. I'll probably leave it off 1 or 2 cards just in case, but yeah, I'm gonna lean Weili here, man, by decision.
Yeah, I will add. We're talking about the psychological aspect for Rose. I will add though, Weili's in a much tougher spot here. Not only just coming off the defeat, but like when you talk about career trajectory, you don't get to lose to the champ 2 times in a row in a year and a half span. Like, you're in a really, really tough spot in your career when that type of shit happens. And we've seen that happen. That's why, immediate rematches are good sometimes, and other times they really greatly affect Pearson's career. And, these two seem to be the top of the division. Whoever wins this should hold the belt for a while. And obviously, if it's 1-1, we have a great trilogy either right away or sometime in the future. For Weili, this is a must-win fight for her career, where she's looking at years of her prime where she's not fighting for the title and sitting there and is number 2, and just a lot of pressure there to win that fight.
Yeah, I agree. All right, and for the main event, this might be one of the most anticipated title rematches we've had in a long time. We've got Kamaru Usman at -310 versus Colby Covington plus 250. I'm going to let you break this one down first, man, but this is going to be an epic main event here for us.
Yeah, super excited for this fight. I feel like people have a kind of like a forgetful memory of this fight too, because Usman ultimately got the finish in the 5th round. But I mean, this was tied 2-2 going into that 5th round, and even if you didn't agree with the stoppage, ultimately Usman was going to win the decision. It seemed that way, but man, it was a extremely competitive fight. I think one judge had it 3-1 Colby, one judge had it 3-1 Usman, and the deciding judge had it 2-2. So it was unbelievably close fight, and to kind of everyone's shock, a complete striking match, complete volume striking match with 0 grappling initiated on either side until the knockdown in the 5th round. So interesting. I don't know if we're going to see it play out that way this time around. Covington is a pressure fighter, unbelievable cardio. That's really what he's built around. He has fantastic grappling, but it's not necessarily like super heavy top control. It's all based around just exhausting your opponent. It's against the fence, volume punches, a takedown. He's going to let you pop back up because he's going to take you down 5 more times, and you're just going to be exhausted, and he doesn't get tired. So that's kind of his grappling style. Not necessarily going for a bunch of subs, even though he did have subs against lower caliber fighters. He's more really about just breaking your will. Usman on the flip side, does have an extremely strong top game. He's a guy that some fighters on the internet or people have called out PEDs, but he's never failed a test. I want to put that out there, but it's just a freak type of athlete where you shouldn't be that big and strong and also have endless cardio. So really interesting there. I don't think either fighter is going to gas. I will give a slight cardio advantage to Covington. I just think his build and his style is made a little better for that, but I don't expect either fighter to gas. Really tough fight to break down here. They both have changed camps since this fight. Covington has basically built a camp around himself, bringing in coaches and being kind of the main piece, which, has a lot of benefits. It's the whole camp's focused on you, but maybe you don't get in the same training partners as being at a big camp. Usman, we know, has switched and gone to, since the Burns fight, is with Trevor Whitman now. And I can't say enough good things about Whitman and what he does to fighters striking. So, and then we got a sample size. We got Covington's been 1-0 from his fight and kind of fought the ghost of Tyron Woodley, and the fight went as everybody expected. And he looked very similar. He didn't look bad. He looked great, but he looked very similar. Usman's had 3 fights since then and has shown vast improvement in his striking, even knocking out Masvidal in the last fight. So, tough to say, but if you had to venture a guess, it appears that Usman has improved more based on the sample size we've seen. Can't say that with confidence, but that is what I'd have to guess here. This fight is no different in terms of how close it is on paper than the first time. I do believe there will be more grappling here. I believe Usman does have a small grappling advantage, and I say that when I mean who do I think has more likely to actually get on top. I don't think either fighter is going to hold the other fighter down, but in those grappling exchanges, I expect Usman to win those grappling exchanges. It doesn't mean that that's bad for Covington if he really believes he can gas him out, because those exchanges in general might work in the favor of Covington. But ultimately, I have to pick what I believe is the more well-rounded fighter in Usman, where I think both their striking have improved, but as we saw in the first fight, the striking is very close. I think Usman packed significantly more power, just like we saw in the first fight. And I think he's gotten better with how he uses that power. The grappling should kind of be very close again, but I give Usman the slightest edge. So it's one of those weird ones where as close as this fight is, and as much as I want to take it, my brain tells me that Usman has more ways to win this fight, and it's just that slightly better. And, I wouldn't be one bit surprised if Covington won this fight, but it's kind of funny. Usman, in his most recent interviews, is almost spot on what I believe, and it's Covington's going to have to live with the time that he was at his best, his prime. There's just another human being who's just that slightly bit better than you, and that's how I believe this fight is. I think it's extremely evenly matched. I think it's extremely close, and Covington's going to have to wake up and be like, man, there's just another guy out there that is that much you're at the pinnacle of sports, and there's just another guy in your generation that's a little better than you. That's my read on this fight. So I am going Usman. I think he's a little bit too heavy of a favorite. I wouldn't feel comfortable betting him. DraftKings, it is a must-play fight for me again. At 5 rounds, I think it's going to be a crazy pace. I think Usman could possibly get an early finish. I don't necessarily think Covington could, but I think the volume is going to be insane. Yeah, I'm going to play both these people heavily. But, man, I'm going to play a lot of Covington. It's 9,300 for Usman, 6,900 for Covington. So I think the odds are a lot closer, which makes me want to play more Covington. But I'm probably going to be 50-50 here just because I do think Usman's going to win. And at 9,300, Usman's going to make value too. I really believe that if he wins. And then Covington's going to absolutely crush value. And I venture to say here, I don't ever recommend this, but if there was ever a fight card like last week where Sandhagen was actually in the optimal, if there was ever a fight card that I could see this in, I could see you playing both these guys if you believe it's going to go to 5 rounds and the loser's still going to score 60 or 70 with the volume. It's a possibility. I don't actually recommend that play, but I would not be shocked to see that either.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think if you're playing cash, though, I think stacking this fight is not a bad idea at all. Yeah. I don't think Usman gets him out early. I think we got another war on our hands here. Mm-hmm. And I think Usman scored like 130 in that 5-round war last time. So there's massive volume, massive things happening here. This one's tough, man. If you said, look at the odds, who would you bet on? I'm betting on Colby all day. I think the odds, the values on Colby, same with DraftKings. But in a 50-50, if this was just pick a winner of the fighter, I'm going to lean Usman here, man, again. I think he's made the bigger improvements. But with that being said, man, I mean, we've got an absolute dogfight on our hands here. Colby Covington's not going to go away easy. I don't know who has the, grappling advantage, if there even is one. Maybe it's just who times their level changes a little better here. But I do think Colby is going to try and initiate more grappling than we saw in the first fight. Kamaru striking has gotten better. I do want to point out, I think that last knockout against Masvidal is a little overblown in the sense that it wasn't some crazy striking that set it up. It was the fact that Masvidal was just terrified of the takedown to an extent where he didn't even have his hands up to protect himself, and I think he got caught because of it. Which, I mean, it doesn't take anything away from what Usman did. He knocked out Masvidal, which is a great accomplishment. But I do think there was a fear, of Usman shooting for that takedown that I don't think Colby's going to have that same fear that Masvidal did, because I don't think he's as worried about a grappling exchange. But, God, man, yeah. Like I said, I think the value's on Covington here because I think this is a 50-50 fight. But straight pick, I say Usman wins this thing. I think we got a decision on our hands here this time, though. But I think it's a must play either way. I think we're going to see a bloodbath, man, a war here. Might be a contender for fight of the year. And yeah, I mean, Covington's a great value on DraftKings, but I got no problem going to Usman either at that price. I think, these two guys, 5 rounds, I mean, something's going to happen here for you. So
another thing I want to point out that just sways me more in Usman is just like Covington has to fight a perfect fight to win because, like, don't get me wrong, I actually do think he landed a really hard, like, liver shot in the last fight. It was a kick. But other than his kicks, Covington can't really hurt Usman. He's not going to one-punch KO him. It's going to have to be a perfect fight with volume, where I'm like, at any second in any exchange, Usman can absolutely hurt Covington. And it's just a huge reason I'm swayed that way as well. I'm just like, man, Covington has zero room for error. Whereas Usman, like we saw in the Gilbert Burns fight, of just, first off, Covington's not going to hurt Usman like Gilbert Burns could, just from just their build, the way they throw power. And it's just like, we saw Usman take it, recover, smash, get KOs on the feet. He's just got that much power. Whereas Covington really does need to dominate fights to get the people out of there. He's not really a finisher in that sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not buying any of these excuses from Covington from the first fight. I had spoiled chicken. I was throwing up. Look, all that's nonsense, man.
This is needed. It was a great fight, a close fight, Yeah,
just take your loss. He sounds like Deontay Wilder. Like, oh, my suit was too heavy going to the ring. Like, I don't want to hear all that, man. You lost. You got yourself a rematch. Prove it in the octagon. Like, we don't need to hear about it in the pressers. But yeah, I'm leaning Usman here in a 50-50, but I think the value's on Covington. I think this is a closer fight than these odds kind of say. So, look, guys, that's UFC 268. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We got an epic fight. I also say I think it starts at 3 p.m. tomorrow. So regular timing, pay-per-view. This is going to be an epic one, guys.